Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the LJL officially unofficial, bringing you that broadcast coverage of the LJL 2021 Spring Split. We're in Super Week, ladies and gentlemen. Week 6 is here. We've already covered one game of Chris Gaming 8 versus DetonatioN FocusMe, and I think the less that's said about that game, the better. Moving over to our backup game of the week. I don't know how to really phrase this, but we're very excited to be covering Sengoku Gaming facing off against DetonatioN FocusMe. And gentlemen, both GreyHart and Nymera, when we first saw this match, this was a match that everyone assumed DetonatioN FocusMe would win confidently, comfortably. This would be just a return, another day in the shop. No, this was where DetonatioN FocusMe picked up their first loss of the spring split, and this was a very different game, wasn't it, Nymera?
It was. This was a game where we saw Sengoku find themselves their feet pretty much the first time for this split. Now, we've just seen them take another 2 wins in the first day, and I feel like I should make a public apology for that because they played in a completely different style. Very measured, very relaxed, bit of a snooze fest, but still effective nonetheless. The game which they won against DFM, completely the opposite. They crushed bot lane. Gango's most played champions of all time are tied right now between Kai'Sa and Kalista. This was a Kalista game from him. I think it's his 16th game on the champion.
Yeah.
They ran through that 2v2, and then DFM, with a bit of an awkward draft, could not get to that Kalista. Gango ran over that game, and so did Crash too, actually, on a Hecarim in that game. Sengoku just ended up outplaying DFM in that draft phase and winning the early game handily.
I mean, when you look at this, GreyHart, and you can come in with your limited knowledge, but I mean, I'd love to know this roster that they played originally versus Sengoku Gaming is the new age one, the one that they're using for spring. They don't have Gang in, they've got Kazu. Kazu was a problem, and as Nymera pointed out, this was the team where Kazu can sometimes be very hot or cold. Is this a moment? Is this a time, especially against former alumni talent in the mid lane, such as Ramune? Is this when you bring back Siros and Gang?
No. And here's why. Because we saw yesterday what happened when DFM go back to the old guard, and when they do it against one of the higher seeded teams. The last game they played, it looked comfortable. You could almost call it a warm-up game for them against CGA. They come in now against Sengoku. They'll know what their issues were last time round. They will have the opportunity to be stronger, maybe correct things through pick and ban, maybe banning away the Kalista, for instance, if that's something that they feel is a priority. I think relying on the same players who have the synergy and have played well against most teams this split is the right move, not doing what they did against Rascal Jesters yesterday.
Totally agree with the pick and ban thing. Don't you, Nymera? DetonatioN FocusMe's previous ban versus Sengoku Gaming.
It was well, heck, even Ebby in his post game interview for Axes yesterday, and actually thank you for Star Sapphire in our Discord for translating that. Said, yeah, okay, pick ban kind of costs the game against Sengoku, and I think we picked that up from the draft. There was a point where when you lock in 3 diving champions in your first 3 picks from Sengoku, maybe don't pick super short range solo laners in your 4th and 5th picks for DFM. Yeah. It did look. There are a lot of different problems. We talked about that a lot on our podcast and various post games and all the other stuff. DFM got slapped. They got a bit of a reality check, and yesterday they got another one. I don't want to detract from the victory from Rascal Jester. Yeah, they put in a couple new players, but they were bluntly outplayed. They were outmuscled. Today they have to show their brawn once more.
We'll be able to find out if they have figured out those problems, those issues, and if they can return to the form at the very top. This win will allow them to return to first place, where a loss here would tie them with the Jesters, and that would definitely spice things up going into week 7 for us. More tiebreakers, as Nymera has been calling for. Might have to get you back, GreyHart, if that's the case.
Hey, I'm always happy to be here, as long as it's not... No, I can't say that. Yes, I can. Crest Gaming. Don't give me any more Crest Gaming.
The worst thing is he's not cast Burning Court yet.
There's something worse.
He doesn't know.
This scares me. This is legitimately interesting. It's not just interesting if we see DetonatioN FocusMe lose. I know other side of the coin, it's interesting if we see Sengoku win, because it pushes them all of a sudden up to 7-4, still have another game. They then have the opportunity to tie things up with V3 and only be 1 game behind both Rascal Jesters and DetonatioN FocusMe if they win this. So actually, going into the final week, this could legitimately be one of the most important matches in terms of how that top 4 is going to end up settling.
all because Super Week arrived and we get 4 games in such a small space of time that we get to have these kind of tables. We get to have the quick burst of energy from all these teams, and we get to see so much happen. And if I can just take us over to the official stream quickly, Mr. Producer Man Patrick, thank you. I'd like to make a point, please, if you're able to. Thank you. Yes, DFM Kazu versus Sengoku NT. Obviously, I have been screaming the praises of NT that he is the most consistent player in the LJL that isn't on Detonation FocusMe, and he is a consistent top 3 player. And if you have a look here, his stats compared to Kazu, well, okay, outside of his assist being down, he's always around there, and he's doing far more for his team.
In some ways, you look at Kazu and you say, okay, he's got assists per game, that's cool. And a lot of that's because he's got Youth Pod in his lane, and he's got some of the best players in the damn region on his team. So when it comes to team fights, when it comes to skirmishes, Kazu probably is going to be picking up a few more assists per game because his team's just getting more kills.
And also, just so you know, Mass One, you don't have to call him Mr. Production Man. Pants is fine.
Does our producer want to have any return for that?
Absolutely not. No,
oh,
accepted.
Complete silence. And they just
golden.
no, the actual muting of the microphone on Discord, like it was unmuted then muted. Like oh, I'm done. Goodbye. Okay, well there we go. Production's over, ladies and gentlemen. Write it out. Call it up. Anyway, as it is. Sengoku Gaming facing off against Detonation FocusMe in our backup game of the week. And these are 2 Titan teams. Sengoku Gaming obviously came through the academy system when the LJL Challenger system was still existing, and then made their slot when they were able to. They were the final team, I believe, to actually get a slot in the LJL alongside V3 Esports. And now with these 2 teams in the LJL for such a long space of time, they're starting to really build up rivalries. Last year, obviously, we had Blank and Pyrion, former SKT1 players there, Apperman having some of the highest stat potentials here. And this roster, it started off really slow, but they're definitely coming into it. Gentlemen, I have to ask for the spicy predictions now. Coming over to our guest caster, GreyHart. Sir, where are you leaning? What's your thoughts?
Legitimately find this one difficult. I'm very, very interested. I can't really draw anything from the last game that we saw. I don't feel like it helps me at all coming into this one. Can I ask for something a little bit random? I would like to pick whatever Nymera doesn't.
Okay, so the opposite of Nymera.
Okay.
So Nymera, what we're going for here? What are you doing?
So obviously we don't know the rosters coming into this game. There is actually some logic into saying, all right, so we had DFM lose through bot lane. Do they sub back in, sub out Kazi, sub in Gang, and have Zeros come up in the mid lane to shore up that weakness that was shown in that last game between them?
It's going to be Arya.
It's going to be Arya. I think then it's still going to be DFM. Screw it.
Okay, Nymera, DFM, GreyHart, Sengoku Gaming. I'm also going DFM as that's what I put in the prediction sheet, but my opinion doesn't matter, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not an analyst, I'm a host at the moment, so it's meaningless. Gentlemen, Pick and Ban Face has begun, so why don't you take it away?
Thank you very much. As always, Master One, a real pleasure. Terrific to chat with you. And you know what? Your opinion does matter. Unfortunately, you share that opinion with Nymera, and so less so. For what it's worth, had I been just doing a stand pick, I would have picked DFM. But you know what? I'm going to stick with my guns now that it's out there. Sengoku going to pick up the win. They are going with their standard lineup, as is DFM. Bans are coming through. Thresh and Senna all banned away by DFM SG, taking away Twisted Fate and Seraphim.
So it's still the same roster from DFM, so we've still only seen that one game from that legacy roster of Seros and Gang coming into mid and support. These are the same sides that these teams had coming into their previous match, and that's when Sengoku did take that win. One thing which came out, which really astounded me about that game is how blatant Sengoku were about what they were achieving with their draft, having stuff like a Hecarim and a Rel and another diving champion very early into their draft, and DFM just did not respond to that. They decided to draft for themselves rather than against the enemy team, and that cost them heavily. It cost them super heavily. Kalista came in for their 4th red pick on that game, and that meant that DFM kind of just shot themselves in their own foot, really. So what I'm looking for now is to see, well, DFM, are you going to be more respectful? Because Sengoku have shown they deserve it.
Renton going to get banned away from Evie based on the performance we saw in the last game. I think that is perfectly fair. Nar was also taken away by DF DFM. Rel is going to be the first lock-in, very much a contested champion in between these two teams. So KheZu going to get their hands on the metal horsey lady.
Yes, the Iron Maiden is the official title, but then
No,
that means we have
metal
to.
horsey lady.
But that means we have to go into classic rock references, which actually I know a lot of. I really like Iron Maiden. On the other side, Greg is locked in. I'm sure we can have an Ailstorm reference for him.
Well, yes, I think you probably could, to be honest. That's going to be interesting to see the Udyr locked in here for Crash. And the reason that I say that, and I will just quickly check, is that the last time these two teams went up against each other, it was Steel playing the Udyr up against the Hecarim that was played by Crash, which didn't go to great effect. Now we're going to see the Olaf most likely locked in. These were the two junglers banned away in the last game by CGA, not wanting Steel to get his hands on either.
No, looks like it is actually going to be the Olaf locked in. It's decent into the Udyr, and now we have the kill lane once more coming out of Utapon and KheZu. Question is, what does Sengoku have against that? I actually wonder, and I say this because I know Ganga's played this once before, I wonder if we get a Vayne out of him.
Interesting. I guess we'll keep our eyes pinned towards the picks and the bans to see if that one comes through. Of course, Kai'Sa still is on the table, but we saw just how that goes into the Tristana in the last game. One thing that I felt could have been played better last time round was the Alistar. Of course, with the Gragas locked in, it feels quite likely it's going to be a Gragas support as Udyr's in there as well. Kalista, Gango's prime champion, is going to be the final pick of this phase.
So we've got the Udyr and we have the Kalista and the Gragas making a real mess of things in terms of disrupting team fights already. DFM this time have themselves, again, the more short-range champions in the Rel and the Tristana. And what that means is, okay, well, DFM, if you're going to pick stuff like your Akali and your Illusion on blue 4-5 once again, I think you're going to find similar results. At least there isn't something like the Hecarim to really punish those overdives once again. But Sengoku setting up for themselves for, a very similar kind of result to what they had last time they won against DFM.
On the plus side towards DFM, at least you've got massively increased range on one of your champions in comparison to the Kai'Sa and the Lucian from last time round. Tristana just going to scale up on that range as levels go onward. Orianna is the first ban away from Arya, not wanting to see any kind of teamfight composition continue to be drafted out of DFM, as Victor is the response.
I think actually an Azir would be a good ban towards Ramone too. I think that's the other long-range mage. You're like, all right, they have a chance to disengage with the Rel, the Tristana. And they can start poking out the likes of our Tristan, our Rel, and our Olaf, as well as we saw in one of our games yesterday, where we were saying, all right, okay, so there's like an Ezreal and there's an Azir. That's really important, because if you walk up and you get, if you're someone like a Kai'Sa, in this case, the Tristana, who for most of this game is not going to be hugely long range, you take a hit before a dragon, and that's maybe that objective fight over.
I'm pretty sure I know the answer, Nymera, but is there a world in which this Gragas is not support?
There is a world where it goes top lane, of course. I think that it's pretty likely to go up towards the top lane, given Ebby's champion pool. Okay. We've not seen a Camille locked in today, and that's something, well, not out of our first game anyway. It wasn't even picked or banned in that game. There's a chance that Ebby goes towards that style of pick. That would, of course, mean that DFM would want to put more pressure towards that top side when they've already got the kill lane on the bot side. Maybe they don't want to go towards that. On the other side, though, the Scion being banned away from Paz stops them from building up a too hefty a front line to get to this Kalista through.
Okay, thanks for that. That's legitimately very interesting to me. As a result, it's going to be interesting to see whether we see something like the Camille, which is now being hovered locked in.
Which they played around yesterday.
Is going to get locked in, which means we are almost certain to see Gragas support now. A potential counter pick for Evie. The same can't be said for Arya. And in the end, the Azir was not banned away, by the way.
Okay, so there is still a chance that we have Trist going all towards mid lane. Unlikely, given that Rel Trist is a powerful combo. We see a lot of Akali out of DFM solo laners. Set would be something very different, actually. That is likely, I suppose, to be heading towards the top lane. Arya not played that champion yet, although I do imagine that he plays the champion, because he plays everything. He's played Kalista mid last year. He's played a lot of random stuff. So now we have the set going into one of these solo lanes. In fact, actually, Arya might be going towards Azir himself, taking away from Ramone. Maybe that's why they didn't ban it.
That makes a huge amount of sense. Confident enough that they were going to get the opportunity to be the first team picking up a mid laner, and as a result, locking this one in. We're seeing an Alistar hover, which could end up meaning a Gragas mid. That is something I have not seen since about season 4.
Or like Or you could have the really off-meta Camille mid trying to ping off the walls onto the Azir early into that game.
Don't be silly.
Okay,
Don't be
alright.
silly.
Nothing interesting like that.
Ramane's going to get the Syndra. I think that mixes things up quite a lot now towards these compositions, and it actually gives both teams an opportunity to play around both of the styles we saw from the last game.
So important thing about Ramane's Syndra, with this game, actually might have been one other one, but Ramane's most played champion now is this Syndra. It's overtaken his LeBlanc from earlier seasons, which he was such a wizard on in season 7 and 8 and the likes of the that kind of time period. Going back to Syndra, it's looked like it's probably his best champion this split so far too. He is up against Arya though. He is against the Azir, which is a matchup which is something that the Syndra can thrive in. I'm looking forward to this mid lane matchup because I think both these champions have agency within these drafts.
That'll be cool to see. One of the main places where our camera kept panning to in the last game was, of course, the top lane, where Evie was completely monstrous on the Renekton. Playing the set this time round, how's the boss going to fare into the big old belly man? So, wait, he's not. He's against Camille because we ended up having Greg's spot.
And this is the thing, right? So
Camille is not a big old belly man.
Look, it's a playable matchup. Having the Udyr on the top side of the map, well, we saw what happened to Cog, for instance, yesterday, who was playing the Gragas into the Camille, and then they just got ganked by the Udyr over and over, and they had to play respectfully. Ebby on his set at level 1, by the way, I'm going to prepare you for this again. You thought his Renekton was something that walked up and tried to zone people away again and again. Ebby's set was infamous for this. There was one game against Axis last year where I think he had 60 CS advantage during that game, and he zoned off his top laner off for 3 levels of XP.
That's kind of disgusting. If that happens here, then that could certainly be a potential win condition. It could be, as you say, doom for Paz and the rest of the team. You've obviously ended up going for Detonation FocusMe. Having looked at this draft, do we like it considerably more than the last game that they had against Sengoku?
I like it more than the last draft because I thought the last draft was suicide from DFM. I think this game, though, I still think, actually, Sengoku might have come out to a bit of a draft advantage because you look at the Rel, look at the Triss, they want to jump in. Jumping into a Gragas is often ill-advised. The Belly Slam can cancel both of their airborne abilities if they do layer them incorrectly. And then you've got the Kalista, who can be so strong in that early lane, and outranges the Triss in the first couple of levels, which means that Yuspan and Kazu are likely to lose some of their pressure in the early game. Syndra has a decent matchup into the Azir, and the Camille has a good matchup into the set. I think that across the board, the lanes are good for Sengoku, though the team fights and, of course, the backline of DFM will eventually outrange and out-damage deal the backline of Sengoku.
Okay, we're going to get ourselves onto the Rift very, very shortly. Both coaches have done what they can to try and make sure their teams have the best opportunity of taking this game. Quick reminder of the standings, and actually this game, super, super important. Detonation FocusMe, with a win, they will go to 10-2, 1 game above Rascal Jester, who of course have had a phenomenal weekend, even that win against DFM yesterday. However, with a loss, they'll be tied at 9-3 going into the final. Is it final week? Is that correct?
That will be the final week. So this
Final
is the
week, yes.
penultimate game day. So technically, even though this is super week, even though it's week 5 and week 6, effectively it's game day 5 and 6, where each game day in the LJL has 8 games back to back. Each team plays twice, which means that when you have a super week of 2 of those days back to back, each team plays 4 games within the space of 2 days. One of those EU LCS specials when they had their super weeks, and it's really harsh, right? It's a harsh schedule. DFM now finishing off their last game of super week, hoping to at least go with a positive record of 3-1.
Thank you, Naimera. And what this means for Sengoku as well, they're currently lying in 4th at 6-4. That means they've still got 2 games to play today, including this one. And they could potentially end the week at 8-4, which would be level with V and 3. And if they did that, there'd be guaranteed to be only 1 game between DFM and a Rascal Jester between themselves and them going into that final week. So they would still have an opportunity to get one of those top 2 berths. If they lose this game, then that chance seems exceptionally unlikely, as we do see a Ward spotting out this potential invade.
So that was Sengoku stacking towards the bot side. It looks like DFM spotted that out, didn't lose any flashes, didn't lose anything else of note either, and they get a ward onto the enemy red buff. One thing we saw between V3 and Sengoku yesterday was actually Sengoku won the vision war. They won the information war. If you get to track the jungler early into the game, there's a lot of things you can end up doing, because you look at these top laners in particular and you're like, okay, there's an Ignite Camille. You have to play respectfully around when the jungler can come up. However, if you do let the Camille start winning these incremental trades one after the other, as opposed to playing aggressively as though the jungler wasn't there, things can go pretty badly in that top side. Maybe this ward early on into the game makes it so DFM do have a bit more to play around, particularly for these top laners.
Kazu doing the best Imagine Dragons impression they could there, because you're on top of a ward and isn't going to be able to find any kind of sneaky play like the crash downs that we saw in the last game, which of course led to so much trouble for CGA in the early stage. Kazu's still trying things, however, still managing to get on top of Enti, getting a good bit of damage down on towards the Gragas, who even takes a chunk from the explosive charge too.
He does. Kazu going for the crash down now, okay, but he's a bit far away from Utapon. The thing about this Callista is that at least they're hitting the champions, not the minions. It's not going to be perma push. It's not going to be Utapon and Kazu forced off the wave, which means that they're likely to contest for this level 2, likely to get the level 2 first, actually.
Okay, keeping our eyes towards that one, because there's going to be more and more aggression on the bottom side of the map. Things fairly standard elsewhere. Kazu hitting level 2, forcing the flash out of NT. Very, very respectful from the Gragas.
Why is this big? It's because NT started the barrel. He didn't start for the belly slam. You can't cancel out the crash down like you can do with the Alistair headbutt pole, which means that Kazu Utapon find a series of aggressive trades, and they manage to get themselves an early advantage. Ramune similarly losing out on this early trading in the mid lane.
Aria having a fun time. As you can see on the bottom of the screen, 79% of the fan vote.
Oh, NT's dead. No, he's just Callista.
Don't do that to me. 79% going in favor of DFM. However, Blitzbot thinks it's going to be much, much closer, though he is giving the narrow edge over to the team who are currently top of the standings. There is a very, very slim gold lead for SG, but it's only 100 or so in the early games, just through some nice jungle pathing coming out of this Udyr, who's clearing that little bit faster.
I guess just checking on the lanes elsewhere. Arius obviously doing well in this mid lane, bot lane going well for DFM. Uncharacteristically, it is going to be Paz getting an early lead over Ebby, but Kazu is now going in deep.
Super aggressive. Gango already flashing away, has the explosive shot. Another shot should lead to an explosion and a first blood. Kazu survives with a sliver of health. Enti having to dash away, throwing out the barrel, trying to get something onto the horse, but not able to do so.
Oh, Steel's here with flash. This is bad for Enti.
Enti's in a real rough spot right now. Here comes the Viking, flashing forward, managing to call down thunder from above. Enti without a flash tries to dash away. One more axe goes narrowly short, and now it's Crash's turn to join the fray.
Crash running down with a bear stance, and now there's no flash on Steel. He's going to get caught out here.
Gango's coming in. Control Ward's going to stop Steel on the recall. Now we can do everything that they can. As you say, no flash available for the jungler. Gango, having given up first blood, will now find a kill in return. Evie's taking so much damage from Paz. The damage is enough for Evie to die to Paz. What did I just see?
So Paz, I guess he just misplays around his haymaker. Ignite comes down afterwards.
What? I didn't even notice it was Ignite teleport.
Exactly. This is the thing. I was saying, okay, well, what happens when you have to play respectfully around a Camille with Ignite in this top lane? Maybe at least teleports back in, takes a good trade towards the top side of the map, but solo kill for Paz. Ebby, for the record, I believe has the most solo kills of any player in the history of the LJL. He's had it for multiple splits in a row. Now heading into a pause amidst the madness, and we get to catch our breath a little bit.
You lucky folks out there in Twitch chat, not only do you get to witness the greatness that is this game between DetonatioN FocusMe and Sengoku, but also you get to be here for the second time GreyHart's voice breaks. I'm just completely shocked to see that outplay coming. Evie, the player who we expect to be the lane bully to dominate these things. Honestly, I didn't even notice the Ignite. Apologies if you called it out. And then all of a sudden, yeah, dead set.
Well,
dead set.
I suppose Ebby didn't see the Ignite either until it was burning away his HP. And there were a couple of real miscalculations there from DFM. Because you see what Steel did on that bot lane play. Sure, okay, he burns the flash and he gets the flash away from... Well, no, there was no flash away on Ansi because, of course, he didn't have one. It was burning that earlier trade. But the fact that the bot lane recalled and then Steel gets caught in his own recall... That shows a bit of disrespect coming in from DFM, or at least a miscommunication in terms of where can this Udyr be? We've not seen Udyr for the entirety of this early game. Choosing to recall in that tri-brush, no way through the enemy turret, no way back to his own safe side of the map, was pretty bad for the side of DFM, because now you've got that red buff taken away from the LF. I'm not sure who that kill went over. I'd assume it's the Callista. If the Callista has the red buff now, if it's the Callista with the red buff, that's bad.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And DFM fans must be out there with their head in their hands, thinking they've seen this all before against Sengoku. And it was just it was pixel difference there from a second kill coming in from the Olaf and getting onto NT underneath their own turret. And then, moments later, of course, we see what happens. Udyr arriving in the right place at the right time in the bear stance. Steel was deaded.
You know, if you've got the Ragnarok, things go very differently, but it's too early into the game. I'm also not sure what happened in terms of the individual play from Steel. I wonder if he didn't have to backtrack for the axe, if he could have got one more auto in, or if he could have dropped the axe a tiny... Well, so what he ended up doing is he ended up throwing the axe slightly backwards because he thought that NT might try and backstep it. That feels like it might have even cost him the kill as well. So it's a game of inches a lot of the time in League of Legends. But this time they go towards Sengoku. And that's now quite distressing for DFM because you look at Sengoku, they are the only team with the possibility of having a winning record in the regular season versus DFM. They won their first round robin match versus them. DFM have beaten the other team, which did have the first victory versus them, and now they're sat there at 12-2, and they're now trying to get themselves a 1-1 record at least with each of these teams. Also, another interesting fact, in this latest iteration of the LJL, having this double round robin as opposed to having the triple round robin of best of ones, no one has finished first with a better score of 12-2. DFM, if they lose a game, cannot match that score anymore. They're looking to continue on the first place finish of themselves and then V3 finishing with 12-2. They cannot lose a game if they want to do that.
Delight abounds for Twitch chat as the game is resumed moments before I'm able to start making tennis-related puns again. Crash apologies, taking away some jungle camps. That is their own jungle camps. Effie will not be too worried about that. Things still very close. We've only got a 200 gold lead despite the couple of kills that were just picked up for Sengoku. Of course, First Blood did crucially go over to the Tristana, and yes, Gango did respond with one of their own. Ramune now getting some good damage onto Ari, who had been winning the earlier trades.
So it looks like, Ari's still very happy with this lane setup, right? They're about to hit level 6. There's a chance they can go in for an Emperor's Divide with Steel on the similar area of the map. The level 6 potential when both of these champions are at half HP means that we might be looking towards some pretty fun outplays coming soon from the mid lane.
We're going to see Dragon #1 picked up, but the
Flash
bear slap from Crash, trying to get damage on Steel, but Kazoo was the first one to be able to respond to this. NT slightly cut off from being able to actually help out their own jungler. So Crash losing out on a Flash as well as the Dragon.
So Kazu bailing out his jungler, and that's part of what this bot lane priority gets you. First Ocean Drake coming in from DFM, relatively happy to get that one stacking early. They are going to give up the Scuttle on the bot side, and Utapon now needs to jump away.
Crash, of course, does not have Flash available. I'm sure he'll be sad about that, but still mighty fast forcing a Flash out of Utapon.
Kazu's behind enemy lines.
Stuck out. The vision is going to now spot him. Kazoo is out of there. He's going to go down to Gango, who gets their second kill of the game. And if there's a Kalista in the world you do not want to see get going, it's Gango's Kalista.
It is. He's famous for it. He's played it in the LCK. He's played it to great effect in the LJL as well. This is dangerous now for DFM. 2 kills towards that Kalista, which punished them so hard in their last matchup. I'm looking now towards, well, the one person who's not really been punished in this early game, that's this Azir, to pull up some weight in these teamfights. At least they have the range, and of course, if you hit a Q onto a Kalista in those teamfights, you get that slow from the shifting stance, or the conquering stance, I suppose. I'm trying to remember what the Azir Q is called. Anyway, the thing which gives you the soldier move plus the slow if you hit someone with it, can start taking Kalista down low, and of course, lowering her attack speed in those teamfights too, because when she's slowed, her attacks are too.
Really interesting one here. On that last kill that we saw picked up for Gango, it was just the double Doran's blades that were in inventory because the last reset had come when Gango themselves died. As we see a nice face breaker onto Paz. It's not going to be enough to do too much of anything. Actually, Evie taking the worst of trade does have the Haymaker available. However, Paz finds the sweep and is able to step themselves out to safety. But now we're seeing the Kalista is going to complete the artist formerly known as Tabbies.
So the Steel Cap's coming in for that champion, of course. Evie, I think the reason he didn't pull the Haymaker is because there's a chance that Paz ults it, then just avoids that damage and wins the ensuing trade with the Ignite back up again. Evie down a number of CS, wave heading into turret. Paz won 2 games on this Camille yesterday and looked maybe not the most flashy on this champion, but understood that as long as he's winning the side lane, his team can play the game a lot more slowly, a lot more calculated than they have done in the earlier weeks. And DFM really do not want Sengoku to fall into that very comfortable play pattern again.
It's looking very, very nice for Sengoku here as they try and put themselves closer to the top of the table, seeing that Olaf has now used Smite enough times to make sure they have got themselves a Chilling Smite available. Crash still waiting on the opportunity to have that spell for themselves. Literally just gained it as I spoke. NT meanwhile hovering, knowing that Kazoo has wandered towards mid lane, looking for a potential counter gank, and we do see the junglers hovering as well. This could easily turn into a 3v3.
I think he's just looking to get some stacks. So I suppose he sees this as all right. May as well get some money for my time. Gets that, and now it is, of course, coming up past that 8-minute mark. We have the Herald available. Steel going to be double leashing the Herald and the Scuttle Crab with the Iron Spike Whip. I think I'm not sure if he actually meant to aggro that, but anyway, that's how it ends up. And now NC heading back down towards the spot side, leaving a Callista alone with a Tristana feels a bit dangerous for that Tristana. And it looks like it will be a Herald trade as Crash uses this time to take away some camps from DFM.
Yeah, we're just going to have the counter jungling coming in. Kazu's going to spot this one out and is going to have Arya for support. So Uda does have to be careful, but he doesn't seem to be being careful. Crash instead just going, you know what? I literally don't care that Rel is here.
Because the Gragas is roaming up too. Ebby going to be farming away under turret. This is a chance for a dive. No flash from Paz with the Ignite. Makes things a little difficult.
This is going to be interesting to see how the Camille plays one out. Does have Hextech Ultimatum available and will need to time it to perfection. Steel, meanwhile, is happy to take...
He pulls him over the turret.
That is going to be a Hextech Ultimatum straight on the turret. Paz is going to die. Evie, with one last turret shot in, is going to make it a 1-for-1 trade. Paz must be delighted.
There is still the Herald topside. There is still no teleport for Paz. It's a 1-for-1. Kill over to the Camille. Not ideal for DFM. But, oh, good stun coming out of Ramune. Saves his life there, I think.
I think so. I think we were inches away from seeing the Emperor's Divide shot out, and as a result, Ramune able to keep it at 0-0-0 on both of the mid laners' scorecards. We ended up not seeing that Herald summoned on the top half of the map.
I wonder if that's because Steel says, all right, Ebby's dead. I want to share this gold. I don't want it just going over to myself. Don't just give over that first tower play. What that does mean is it leaves Gango and NC down on this bottom turret to get... You know, they're not going to finish off that turret, but there is a chance now that DFM don't get first turret if a big play happens bot side. But if they manage to get that gold over towards Ebby on this set, it would help stabilize that matchup pretty heavily.
Certainly true that DFM have more of the turret plates going for them. They've got 3 in top, 1 on the bottom half of the map. They may even have taken 1 in mid, whereas we're only seeing a couple picked up by Gango on the bot side. So, yeah, there's definitely ways, avenues that we've seen DFM use to reduce this gold lead. It's only on a couple hundred. The second dragon of the game has now spawned. DFM, of course, took the first one, as we can see the gold charts looking very, very nice for Gango. And, yeah, it's a mountain dragon this time around, which means we're seeing either Infernal or Cloud Rift.
So Ebby, once again, walking up, just trying to fish for anything on the top side. I think that's what they're trying to do. I think the DFM just said, all right, because Ebby's died, we don't want to go put down the Herald immediately.
They'll trade turret for dragon, right?
And I think at this point, given that they have one early dragon, yeah, I think that they're pretty happy to just say, right, your Camille is something you played around really well yesterday. Let's make sure they're not as ahead as they can be.
Hextech Ultimatum is not available. Paz obviously doesn't have the flash because opted into the Ignite, and as a result is having to step away from the turret as Olaf's presence is made known.
So it's still 12 minutes into the game, and we can see Paz has the teleport and has the ability to back off from that wave. Kazu's now under turret. Tristana's coming back to lane. Okay, right, big teleport play coming in.
This is going to be huge already. 3v2 in bot. Kazu doing what they can, flashing towards Evie, who's here for safety. Buster shot straight onto Paz, who's dashing onto Utapon, but Rel's already dead. Olaf is going to die. Sorry, that was the Uda dying in mid lane in response as the big gank came in, but it is going to be Gango who finishes off the Tristana, and this bot lane play is not over yet. Ramone's wandering down. Steel's coming down after the fracas that we saw in the mid lane, or rather, that we didn't see in the mid lane, and Steel goes into Ragnarok trying to find the damage, but has to flash straight out.
Oh, the Emperor's Divide.
Arya finds massive damage with the Azir, is trying to find more kills, but Paz is going lower, but still finds a kill onto Steel, eventually getting taken down by Arya, who is suddenly 2-0. Gango still finds a kill onto Set. It's absolute madness across the rift.
Chaos as 2 big carries from either side get themselves gold into their pockets. 4-1 and 2 on this Callista. Gango off to a very important start for Sengoku. On the other side, though, Azir picks up 2. Gonna get a whole replay of that. How does it start? Big amount of teleports coming in from Sengoku.
Oh no, picture in picture is what's happening now. I thought that might be our kill in mid. That's
exactly. So Utapon manages to disengage very briefly from Paz, who tries to hookshot onto them. Can't land that with the hookshot flash. Then Gango says, all right, Utapon, you just stood up way too far. Finishes off with the Pierce getting the extra damage from that Q coming through. And then you think, all right, okay, at least Azir's alive and still has the entrance in here. But then you realize there's still a Hextech Ultimatum. That's exactly what they end up using. Even though Ebby gets into the back of things, Gango escapes the Emperor's Divide. The Callista's full HP, able to disengage so much of this play, and that becomes really important later on because Gango then just runs down Ebby.
Speaking of getting run down, Herald gets put down, getting turret plates mid. Tristana overstays and just straight up dies. Looking at the minimap, it does look like during that play it was just a straight out jungler duel that was won by Steel.
I'm trying to remember actually if Udyr died under turret.
And they didn't. They died just north of it.
Right, okay, that would be it. Too many things happening just there. And speaking of that, we're gonna get an immediate other replay. Herald was put down mid. We saw that. Okay, Steel still has that. Oh no! What happens there is Uspawn sees. Okay, all right.
Oh, that's
maybe I put
such a
myself
good
into a bad position. Has no flash, and then Ramone cancels out the rocket jump. Did say that this is his most played champion of all time now, making it look comfortable, making it look easy, killing the best AD carry in the region.
And also the opportunity to get first turret completely lost by DFM on the back of those plays because it's going to be Gango that takes that. Now Paz, yet again, perhaps regretting the absence of Flash, much as we saw coming out of Kassin yesterday. This time, however, it's working out considerably better for the Camille, who's 3-2.
Is 3-2. Even in gold with the set, though. So actually not ahead in the individual matchup, but does have the Ignite. Crash is now topside. NT is now topside. Steel hanging around, waiting in the wings, but DFM would not want to be taking a 2v3. You've got Zero tiny bit ahead, but the real big story of this is Kalista is now really hard to deal with. Has the Immortal Shield Bow. Utbon trying to pick up farm here and there, but died for the plates mid lane, died for the attempt of trying to get any sort of farm in that area of the map, and this Tristana will not be as fearsome as they were in that last game.
No, they won't, but I think it's the comparison to the Azir. I think you've got to look at the two carries. So right now, Syndra and Tristana, respectively, they're quite level to each other, but there is a near 1,000 gold gap between the Fed Kalista and the Fed Azir going in favor of SG. And that's the big turning point right now, because it means the Kalista, who's slightly getting collapsed on, is in a much, much better place. We do see Herald number 2 started up by SG.
They are, and the problem for DFM is that the only player and the only champion that consistently can deal with that Kalista is the Azir. If you land some slows and you get in with the Emperor's Divide, Gango has a hard time fighting. Olaf, Set, Rel, they don't have the same to be said about that. Trist can, in the late game, deal with the Kalista relatively well, because you can go towards the Buster Shot, have some nice combos. Ramone, it has no flash, and is in danger now on this bot side, but gets away just in time.
Oh, I thought the collapse was going to come in time, but Ramone is able to step away. No guesswork coming through from Kazu on this one. Third dragon of the game spawning momentarily. We're seeing another turret being picked up. This is actually the first turret for DFM. Utapon able to clear this one up on the bot side, as we see the same being true for Paz on top side.
And the thing is about DFM is that even when they have struggled across the board in different roles, when Siros was falling off a little bit last year, when Ebby had his more dull split in summer than he did in spring, we had Utapon at least performing admirably across the board. Arya just getting collapsed on a little bit in the mid lane in his own right, forced away from that wave. But Utapon looked scary yesterday even. This game though, he's been held down. Needs to show his class once more and try and bring up the backline damage for DFM.
Interesting trade here. This is a dragon being given over free and easy to DFM. The first Infernal Dragon of the game will put DFM onto 2 dragons. Herald put down in mid, but of course not going to take that turret away. No turret plates to be found at 17 minutes. Also, can we just take a moment to have a brief chuckle at how slowly Rel auto attacks?
Almost as slow, yeah, just a little bit slower than Senna. I was about to say almost as slow as Senna. I'm like, actually, it's probably slower. She really is glacial with those auto attacks. She doesn't even go to slow with them.
Meanwhile, on the back of that dragon being picked up, there is still a 1,000 gold lead. This game is tight at 17 minutes. We're well into mid-game. Roams around the map are going down. Fights still continuing to happen across the board. I honestly don't know who I would say is even leading this game at the moment, though the tempo does seem to be favouring DFM in the last couple of minutes.
I think that DFM evening up the gold a little bit and getting more gold onto the Tristana is really important for them. I don't know if Ebby having a sort of gold lead over Paz helps them that much this game. Excuse me?
That was so good. The Oracle lens showing the vision. Kazu took roughly half an hour to try and clear it, and as a result, the Oracle lens timed out and they had to burn a control ward.
That's crying in Jin as he has to reload. That's the one which it screams to me. Crash and Ramone, no camps to take away on this bot side. Just trying to make sure that they can shuffle this wave into town. Arya's going to pick that one up. No objectives right now. 2 minutes until Baron even spawns. That's not going to be a problem. But now there is going to be a point in this game where Kalista comes online and says, right, I have Ren stacks. Good luck trying to fight against objectives against me. Doesn't have the Hurricane right now to push out waves as quickly as they would want to get themselves, again, that kind of tempo across the map, which currently is going in the favor of DFM. But that's something that we're going to have to look out for these Dragons and Barons in the next few minutes.
And Amira, I've not had the opportunity to cast much of Azir since pre-season changes came through with all of the various item changes. What do we make of the choice of Leandries and Merc Treads?
I think that's fair. It gives you more ability. Haste is a mythic passive. Even though the magic pen is nice from the Ludens, it gives you the ability to play with this poke build with the Comet and of course the burn damage over time. When you have HP stackers like the Gragas and like the Udyr too, it's nice, particularly when you're leading up to objectives, you land a Q, land an auto. Suddenly they've actually lost a significant amount of HP.
And one of the things that I've had people in the past say, oh, you must have nothing to talk about if you start talking about CS differences, but there are some notable ones here. 20 CS
away the Raptor.
CS advantage for the Azir, so on top of that massive kill lead, also getting the CS numbers going well. Also up on top side, unsurprisingly, Evie dominating once again, 20 CS up on Paz.
Yes, doing his best. Well, I mean, I was about to say doing his best. See, the thing is, Ebi's obviously it's spelled out Evie, but it's pronounced Ebi to be the Japanese word for shrimp. And I'm like, he's doing his best shrimp impression. I'm like, what do I even mean by that? What is a shrimp impression? Apparently, shrimp are doing an impression of Ebi because there's actually nothing in common with them. Ebi's doing okay.
Alex, yes. You okay there, buddy?
I'm just sat there like, wow, I'll make a reference about his name. No, brain 404, not
the only shrimp I can think of is the shrimp in the Muppet Show, who's like quite funny. But apart from that, I got absolutely no context for this one. Baron has now spawned with 15 seconds past the 20-minute mark. Kazu looking for potential catch onto Crash, but he's able to stay away from the crash down. And things are slowed up a little bit here on the Rift.
Kazu looking for angles, of course, can go over the wall with that Rel W, as you were saying. And the ARAM, JRAM, I suppose, coming out strong from DFM. And Tristan Azir now getting themselves up to large amounts of wave clear. Azir, when he builds towards the Nash Tooth, having plenty amounts of attack speed too, going to be very hard to displace from the mid lane. And what that means is that Sengoku will have to look to play around once again this Camille, who's doing okay in the side lanes. The question is, are they doing well enough in side lanes? I am going to hazard a guess and actually say maybe not. Don't have the CS advantage. I'd be doing well on that front. And now actually Paz might get collapsed on here.
Has got the hook shot available. Facebreaker's not going to catch onto them, so able to step away. We see that there's a huge amount of safety for the Camille with the hook shot. Part of the reason why you're not seeing the flash being picked up. But one of the things I love about Camille as a champion, I've said it before on cast, the guy I duo queue a lot with, he's a Camille main. And one of the things I just love is that you can get on any champion from like screens away if you flash hook shot. I feel like that opportunity is lost slightly. And when you've got things like the rocket jump for Tristana for separation, it's going to be so much harder to lock down those carries.
It definitely shows that you're not looking to play so much around the team fights. It's more about the side lane 1v1 and the early game, right? He did get that solo kill. Still going to not... I was wondering if Still was going to try and aggro the Baron, get some damage onto them. Doesn't end up landing the undertow onto the big neutral objective, though. And it is important that you do say about, well, okay, what's the target accessibility like? Because we've been talking about how do you get on top of the Kalista. On the other side, it's how does Sengoku get on top of the Azir, get on top of the Tristana? Tristana at level 12 got themselves a decent range increase now and has 2 items, one of those being the Phantom Dancer, which gives you more attack speed the more when you do auto attack, I believe it's 3 times now, it might be 4 or 5, but you do get a lot of value out of that. After your Hail of Blades and your Q has fallen off, your attack speed is still very high after the Phantom Dancer procs.
Oh, Ramone somewhat caught out, but we're going to see the Emperor's Divide not quite
flashed away from
onto Ramone, courtesy of a well-timed flash. Another dragon has now spawned. Paz looking to step up towards this one. Does have teleport available should they need to join around the Baron. Meanwhile, Evie going really, really aggressive. Caught out by Crash. However, throwing down the Haymaker, getting damage onto 3. Having to flash away from the aggro. Paz coming looking for a flank, as is Ramone on the back of the flash. The recall came through. Hookshot over the wall. Paz going to clear out the vision at the Infernal Dragon. And this one could easily level things out for Sengoku.
It could do, but then you're still playing against an Azir. They have a Leandries. That means that the neutral objective burn is very strong. Kazu is on a flank, is seen by the sweeper's lens, and still and Arya start 2-manning this Baron.
They have indeed, knowing I think that Paz has started up the dragon. Enti's got slightly caught out of position here. Crash having to flash away from Kazu's crash down. The Baron has been stopped. The dragon has not, and the Infernal is secured by Sengoku. But actually, probably get the better of this trade despite losing a couple of summoner spells.
Because it's the opportunity opportunity cost. What did DFM put into that play? They put all of their members on the top side of the map. They cleared out some mid-wave. Sure, they're not going to lose that turret right now, but they lose the dragon. They lose the chance to get themselves Infernal Soul Point, which means that Sengoku are now even in those objectives, as you were saying, and DFM do not walk away with a Baron. They do not manage to get any kills, and the game is much more even than they would like to.
It's very even indeed. But at 24 minutes, you touched on it a moment ago, Utopon's range is massively increased at level 13 and will only get bigger for another 5 levels. I do feel like this is such an important thing for DFM, because last time when they suffered that shock loss to SG, a big part of the problem was the lack of range to be able to get onto some of the backline carries, to be able to get especially onto Gango. Well, that's not going to be as much of a problem this time.
No, not quite. Kazu now in the top river, still has no ult, and they're going on to him.
The focus is going to be Steel. He's immediately Hextech ultimatum, can't get out of there with a Ragnarok, and the life of the jungler is forfeit. SG pick a huge champion kill up.
They understand Steel has no flash, has no Ragnarok. That's only just come off a cooldown now. And yeah, you're right. It wouldn't have been able to get out the Hextech ultimatum. Either way, pinpoint targeting from Sengoku. And now because they still have their Kalista ult, I think they can just threaten the turn away from this objective.
Baron is going down fairly slowly, but of course you have to factor in the potential Ren that will come through. Fight has been taken as Kazu crashes down and Arya finds the kill onto the enemy support. However, the supports are traded back and forth, but Paz as the top laner will die to Arya. Set will find a kill onto Gango. Obliteration as Utopon finishes off Ramone. Things go horrifically wrong at Baron for SG.
Across the history of the LJL, and particularly coming into this split, there are a number of players we say have been the real stalwarts of their role, the best of all time, the GOATs. In top lane, it's Ebby. In bot lane, it's probably Utopon. In mid lane, Arya makes a strong standing for themselves. All three of them are alive. They show their class around this Baron. Sengoku show themselves 1 inch of weakness like Steel did in this mid lane, and they are punished accordingly.
This is how things started, but we now know how things finished with a Baron buff going over to the blue team.
It's completely against the run of play too. This could be the game-winning play. This could be the time where you look, okay, and say, right, this is where the game was decided. There might be another couple of fights left in it, but we see Sengoku, they have themselves the Kalista ultimate. They might have the ability to play around that. So Gango gets himself free at the back end of this fight. Think, okay, maybe there's an ability to get on top of Utopon, but then I think Gango ends up clicking his jump into a bit of a wrong direction, gets right back into that Magnet Storm, and stops him from maybe making an extra 2 or 3 auto attacks. Could have ended up killing Utopon. Instead has to stopwatch and dies on the aftermath of that play. And Kazu leading the charge with that engage. DFM take themselves a crucial teamfight win.
Watching that replay, Gango and Paz both get absolutely obliterated. Yeah. And of course, they're the two most fed members of SG. And you'd usually expect a fed Camille to have a certain amount of survivability. Didn't happen there. Evie not going to be able to cancel out the teleport that we are seeing coming out from Paz. It's enough to save his life.
It is. Another important thing to stop off on is Arya has a Magi's now. It's 10 stacks, so it's gold efficient, and Kazu fishing for an engage. I was wondering if there were going to be more Magi stacks to be added to the infamous Death Note on the Azir. And he's got himself even more ability haste now, because of course it counts the legendary item towards the Liandry's Anguish. Going to have himself a lot of power to play around. 5-0-2 on this Azir, the only deathless player this game.
Well, we are watching what could be the end of this redemption angle against Sengoku for DFM. They're pushing in with the Baron power play. They found themselves a 4,000 gold advantage since that turnaround. And they found themselves a Gragas, a nice easy kill on the back of beautiful Shurima Shuffle, Emperor Divide from Arya.
Using the level 16 ultimate, it makes it slightly wider. The extra soldiers put on board. I need to want another couple of soldiers for Kazu, because he's in there alone.
Paz able to take a blast cone, able to get out to safety. Arya arriving too late to help out his support. Both supports now dead as the massive showstopper comes down. Gango in all sorts of trouble is going to die to the explosive charge. Is actually eventually going to be the kill. Going over to Arya. Another one in return is going to come as Ramone manages to find a catch out onto the set. Ramone and Paz are the last bastions of hope for SG. And it is going to be Paz going aggressive, trying to catch on to Utopon. But as the turret dies, so does the Camille. MT is back alive again. This is enough to zone away DFM. DFM. Teleport coming in on the backside. Ramune going to catch onto Aria, looking for the shutdown, but the shuffle is straight back onto Empty, going aggressive. Utapon and Aria, those two legacy players you spoke of, doing the work, finding the damage. Utapon with extended range is going to get the kill, isn't going to die themselves. The inhibitor will fall. There are long death timers now on multiple members of SG. This could be the game-ending push from DFM. Utapon chucks the explosive shot straight onto the first Nexus turret. That one's gone. There are still death timers that are too long for SG. Here comes Gango, going to do what they can. Both Nexus turrets are gone, but Aria and Utapon are going away. In comes the teleport. It's going to be trying to make a play from inside the very base of SG. DFM still going aggressive. The damage onto Gango from Aria. Buster shot, sorry, not Buster shot. Rocket jump forward from Utapon, but that finally will be the end of a mad play from DFM.
When you swing for the king, you'd best not miss. There is no deicide in that play. Trying to take down DFM. Sengoku will not in that series of plays. Now DFM, for the first time in this game for such a long time, they find themselves ahead in kills, ahead in pressure, with their foot on the life of this game, trying to push their head beneath the water. Aria gets in with that ultimate at the start of it, but this is the start of a huge chain of plays for DFM.
Absolute incredible stuff. Let us know what we're seeing. Obviously, Kazu caught out.
Kazu's caught out, and that's the kind of thing. You see the teleport back into the play from Aria, and one of the big things is Ebby is now at a point where you can't just one-shot him before he gets to the Haymaker. Gango gets right on top of, well, I mean, he's right in the middle of things. I mean, Gango did not want to have Ebby shuffled right into his face. And yeah, there's a good turnaround. You see that the initial pick onto Kazu obviously happened, but it's the two big damage dealers of DFM that are alive at the end of this. Aria slides and glides forward, kills the tower to give them a safe escape route out. Ramune, once again, he's one of these players, one of the other legacy mid laners in the LJL, trying to make a big play, but doesn't understand how out of position NC is, and he's so close. One more skill shot would have led to the death of one of these two members, maybe changes the tail of this game at this end of it, maybe would have led to an Infernal Dragon for the side of Sengoku instead. Actually, as we saw in the picture-in-picture, DFM take that, and now they're left with 0 Nexus turrets, 0 objectives to take across the board, and a lot of gold out of pocket.
In this game, it feels like we need a picture-in-picture. It's just action all around the rift at times. Gango going narrowly wide with that Pierce, and again, the kill comes through. Going into that series of plays, Utapon barely had a single kill to their name. Now they're 5-2 and 7.
Oh,
well
25 stacked Medjos, by the way.
On Utapon. Yes, Aria, and someone you certainly like to chat about a lot, is having a fantastic game. It's fair to say, all of a sudden, you can see the damage dealt to champions, where once Gango had the lead, now we do see the massive advantage coming in for Aria, but fair play to Ramune, keeping up there.
I wonder if about 6,000 of that came just in that last fight, because Aria probably wasn't doing the most work in this game up until then, because we've not had clean 5v fights. We had that one Baron play, and then we've had that one play around the base. This is the thing, if you let DFM into the game, into the mid and late game, they do just tend to out-team fight. They have been historically the best team fighting team within the LJL, V3 within last summer, obviously other contenders for that title. But DFM showing their stuff in this game.
They really are. I mean, you said the classic quote, if you can take a swing at the king, you better not miss. Well, they didn't just miss once, they've probably missed about 3 times, and with the strikeout, SG might find themselves in a really rough place. Well, they do find themselves in a rough place. Their Nexus is exposed, Inhibitor still down on the top side. Crash is running through the jungle, trying to find some kind of pick, but he's going to get caught out by the Showstopper, the Face Breaker, the Haymaker. Blast from NT is not enough to save the jungler, and this is as the Baron has spawned as well, so DFM can turn to that one, or they can just take the fight, because they are 5v4. Teleport will arrive late from Paz. Gango already in all sorts of trouble. Every flashes, Face Breakers onto Gango, who's trying to get the damage down. The explosive shot is good. The Hextech Ultimatum finding a bit of zoning for the Kalista, but they're not putting the damage out. The respite comes through as we do see Gango able to try and step to a safety. Gragas can only save him for so long. It is going to be the game-ending play coming out of DFM. They get the cleanest of aces. Sengoku are routed in their own jungle. DFM will get revenge for their earlier split loss, and they will now go to 10-2 alone in the standings.
And heavy is the head which holds the crown, but not heavy enough to weigh down DFM to a 3rd loss. Going to retain their place at the top of the table as they had it at the start of Super Week. Victory to DFM.
Congratulations. They will top the table going into the final week. They will essentially, I believe, secure their place in one of those top 2 playoff berths, which is absolutely huge for our previous and potential future champions.
And I believe that actually when going into the last week, there's a chance there's a tiebreaker, but I don't think that's a chance which GFM are going to give to anyone. We saw how cleanly they put CGA to the sword in their first game of the day. We woke up a little bit for the second game. We thought, oh, hang on, maybe there's a bit more to play for. And Sengoku have shown that actually, okay, while they've had this one loss and likely to lock them out of a top 2 finish, they are a contender. They will have to go through the lower bracket in that playoff run in some form or other. But I think it's going to be very dangerous for any team trying to go against this Sengoku team. They've shown their stuff, and particularly having Gango with this pocket pick up the Callista, able to play through bot side, has been so important for this team.
Well, we've got plenty we can talk about from what was an action-packed game. However, we are going to take ourselves just a short break before we break it all down. So please stick around. We'll be back soon.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the desk. Must-One, GreyHart, Nymera to recap Sengoku Gaming facing off against Destination FocusMe, and we witnessed GreyHart. I'm sorry, you're wrong. Detonation FocusMe were going to be the victors, and we were right all along. Apparently, the analysts that cover the region in a week-by-week basis are right, Nymera.
Yeah, but it got a bit close. Just throwing it out there. Like, it sounded like it was the done deal. I was standing like, oh, bloody hell, it's happening again after a couple of things happened.
Guys, Mike. All right. No, yes, you're completely right. We were not looking very comfortable for the first 20-ish, or 25 minutes, really, of that game. But let's actually go to the parts exactly as you were hinting towards. This early game, Sengoku Gaming looked really strong, GreyHart. And the early part of this game, especially where Ebby and Steel died early, caused them some issues.
It really did, yeah. I mean, first of all, kudos to you. You were absolutely both right. I'll take my rare moment of being proved wrong on this one. It happens once every 10 years or so. But yes,
I'll take it.
what happened on this one is basically greed. Basically, we saw First Blood coming in. I believe it was Utapon secured that one, and then with the low health Gragas, we saw the potential pincer coming in. As we saw the Olaf coming through the jungle, very very narrowly securing a second kill for the team. Instead, getting caught out. Almost a split second that happens. Camera shift to the top lane where the straight out outplay comes in through the ignite from Camille, and yeah, things started to look a little bit shaky. Not the first time this weekend we've seen DFM look a little bit shaky in an early game.
No, it's not at all, but they were able to get the 2-0 today at least, so that's all that they're concerned about. And then obviously afterwards, we saw Gango start taking over this bot lane, Nymara.
We did, because of course red buff was given over to Callista early into this game, and suddenly it was a problem where, okay, so Steel has died early on the Olaf. If a farming jungler dies early, they are less ever present because they have to kind of catch back up to their farming route and stuff like that, as opposed to and Olaf is normally a champion that farms so quickly. He has more free time on the map. It turned out that actually Crash was the one that managed to get a little bit more into that bot lane. They got another kill onto Kazu as he was caught out when Utapon started to flash away. And then it's like, okay, you've got a Callista who's continually pushing in because they've kind of broken that momentum at the early game from DFM's bot lane, and that set up to dive. So when they started diving, that's when we're like, oh, this is quite bad for DFM.
And the badness, is that even the badly? Nah, whatever. It continued for a while for this game for Detonation FocusMe. The mid game was not the saving grace for them. In actuality, Sengoku Gaming were more than happy to go to the mid game, and there were just constant skirmishes where it just seems like Sengoku always had DFM's number, GreyHart.
I completely agree. I felt like they had the edge, very similar to what we saw, I believe, out of CGA the other day. And was it CGA? Whoever it was, we saw something the other day where this was very similar to exactly what we saw here.
CJV3, yeah.
That was the one, CJV3 that we saw the other day in exactly the same scenario. And honestly, felt really, really good for that. I always was slightly concerned about the lack of Flash and Camille. And I felt like with greater range threats like Utapon on the Tristana, like on the Azir, that it was always going to be a little bit tougher to shut them down. Eventually, that ended up being the case. It also put Paz under quite a bit of trouble because what had turned from an early, not first blood, but a first kill in that lane to Paz, left them consistently stuck under turret, led to a huge gold lead and CS lead for Ebby. And I think it was one of the points where actually they started to fall apart a little bit.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, we look at this mid game and we're kind of saying, all right, Sengoku definitely getting a lot more out of this than we thought. It wasn't the same state that they were playing around yesterday, though, right? Where they had those 2 wins where Camille was slowly winning in a side lane. That wasn't happening. Actually, Ebby showing his stuff and saying, all right, yeah, I mean, I'm still, historical best top laner in the LJL. That one guy. That one guy that's won pretty much everything. He gets himself relevant back into that game, and it meant that Sengoku then couldn't play around the sidelines and had to start team fighting.
And when they did start team fighting, it didn't always go their way. They had to do a Baron fight at 25 minutes in without their jungler. Yeah. And I'm going to go to you, Nymara, for this one. When I was watching it live, I was glued to the screen. I'm so glad GreyHart was commentating it. And I was like, oh God, can they do this? Can they do this? Can they do this? And how does it turn out for them?
How did it turn out for them? Well, it started, of course, with still getting picked in the mid lane after using the Flash, after using the Ragnarok, and it's like, all right, okay, so you've got a Callista and a Smite on Baron. There's also an Azir, there's also a Rel, there's also, of course, that Tristana too, and Ebby's involved as well. It's a 4v5, you got a fed Callista, you think, right, maybe without that extra champion trying to target the Callista, you can start dancing around, start getting something good out of this. That's not what happens. Azir has not got any damage put back onto him. Utapon gets to free fire, and Gango hops into the Magnet Storm in a bit of a misclick, and maybe that's what stops the turnaround onto the Tristana. Either way, Gango is probably going to die, and he does die. And the Tristana stays alive, the Set stays alive, the Azir stays alive. They take the Baron after that point. Sengoku kind of throw that game away at that point.
And I feel like the quote of Danny DeVito is coming to me. I just started dancing on him. And then that's all they really did. They were dancing all around them. And I think that's a perfect way to really go to this last point, GreyHart. DFM, they extended their team fights in Sengoku's base for so long, and they just knew the limits of everything.
Extended is definitely the right word. Knew the limits. Not entirely so sure about that one. That was a game of very, very fine moments where maybe a slightly better play or a well-timed flash from SG could have actually turned things around a little bit and led to a third Infernal Dragon for them. I think Nomera said, and
yeah.
I mean, okay, if you want to put it as full praise onto DFM, yeah, that was incredible what we saw from Arya and from Yutpon inside the enemy base, lasting for just what felt like hours in an extended team fight. They took so much. The game was essentially over at that point. Yeah, it was remarkable play, but I still feel like it was a touch on the overly risky side.
Risky, but maybe it was all
fun.
Oh, very fun, and
Yeah.
potentially they can pretend it was calculated all along. We'll never truly know. And also, it was a very strong showing from Sengoku at the end of the day. They definitely took it to Detonation FocusMe and made them dig rather deep, and it felt like a little bit like a retro version of Detonation FocusMe coming out, trying to find the way back into a game when maybe they've put themselves in this spot. But with this game being over and done, that means GreyHart, you will be now departing for the desk. Thank you so much for being here. Oh no! No.
I'll miss you, Lexi.
Oh, I'll miss you too, Stan.
I'm sure Crest Gaming Act missed you too.
Shut up, Chimera.
But as you are departing the desk here, have you got anything you want to plug, say, or just do in general?
I think yesterday I barked, so I'll do one better than that. Thank you for having me both these days. It's been a real pleasure to be here. If you want to drop me a follow on at GreyHart99, always massively appreciated. And yeah, it's been great to be here. Look forward to seeing how the rest of Super Week goes. You've been a pleasure to work with, both of you.
That's a thankful start. Thank you, my lord. Thank you. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, we will be going to a short break for a moment. But when we come back, we'll be catching up with Sengoku Gaming in their second game of the day, facing off against Burning Core, and we'll be having Initialized back in the booth. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a moment.